We are continuing to follow breaking news out of the ABC2 newsroom. Baltimore police say a doctor has been shot at Johns Hopkins Hospital and a suspect is holed up inside the facility right now on lockdown for patients, for staff members, doctors and nurses following an emergency alert that was issued just after 11 o'clock this morning. Sources inside the building tell us this incident happened in the Nelson building on floor 8, although we have not been able to confirm that yet. Right now we're being told the doctor in this situation is in critical condition and that the suspect is still on the loose, has not been caught. We are told SWAT team is on the scene there. They are trying to deal with this suspect who we are told has been barricaded into a specific area of the hospital. As we said, though, the hospital on lockdown right now as they deal with this very serious crisis situation. We're joined now by Rob Weinhold of the Falston Group. He is a former Baltimore City Police Department spokesman. He was with the city for 13 years, leaving in the year 2000. So, Rob, talk about how they're dealing with this in a crisis perspective at this moment.
Well, I think it's important for everyone to understand right now that there's still a lot of unknown facts, and certainly don't want to speak on behalf of the department or Hopkins at this point, but we're dealing with a very severe condition of instability and danger. And the first thing that must be done, obviously, is to secure the scene and make sure that safety is paramount for everyone involved. And so, again, I think from a public, one needs to understand and be a little bit patient, and that there's a lot of information that has not yet been released, and that will just take some time. But you can be sure that the very well-equipped Baltimore Police Department is doing everything it can to make sure that a suspect is apprehended and that anyone who may have been injured during this incident is receiving the proper medical care.
So, Rob, in your experience with this, tell us how the protocol for this works. Do they appoint a point person who is, closest in line with the suspect, and then they disseminate the information to all the other forces who are out there? How does this system work when we're in a crisis like this and we have a shooting where everything, as you said, is so chaotic?
Well, what you have to remember is that the officers, are trained for this type of thing. So from a tactical perspective, they're going to be using all of their resources and really deploy tactically to, again, make sure the situation is abated. And that means that the suspect is apprehended, that those who are injured are cared for, that the crime scene itself is secure, and that all the evidence can be processed in a very proper and detailed manner so that ultimately the facts can be uncovered in the minutes, hours, and days and weeks ahead to find out exactly how this may have happened and what may have led up to the incident.
And people on the outside, of course, they want information in an instant. They want to know what's happening. They want to know why hasn't the suspect been caught. Talk about the process for that. I mean, they're not going to rush this along. They want to get this guy out safely without letting him hurt anybody else. I'm saying he in the generic term. So, they're not going to be in a rush to resolve this situation with this guy in just a few minutes as we would all like.
No, and that's true, and I know that there's generally a rush for information, but the worst thing that can happen is for folks to receive misinformation, so that if everyone thinks the incident's over, but it's really not, obviously that's a safety issue. And so I would caution folks and everyone who's paying attention to this incident to really receive the information from qualified or authorized officials from the Baltimore Police Department or from the hospital, so you know that the information you're getting is accurate, not only from a safety standpoint, but also from an informational standpoint. There's going to be many, many questions after this incident has concluded, leading up to why it happened, what policies were in place, protocols, the whole 9 yards. And so, again, while there's a rush for information, I think folks really need to be very, very patient, because at the end of the day, you want accurate information. And again, we're dealing with a condition of instability. It's dangerous at this point. I would encourage folks to pay attention to exactly what officials are telling them about, staying in their rooms or going to different locations so that they're in a safe zone, so to speak, and let officers do the work that they need to do to resolve this situation, because they're the professionals who know how to handle this.
And Rob, you obviously have a lot of ties to this police community. Are you hearing anything from your sources in the field about the situation out there?
No, not at this point now. So I think it's incumbent upon people that if they know something, they have to remember that if a suspect still is at large, they may have access to a television or a radio, and the last thing you want to do is provide critical intelligence information to a suspect that he or she could use to harm the officers that are trying to apprehend them. And so, again, there's no information that I would release at this point, but by the same token, again, I would encourage folks to listen to the authorities, as I know the Baltimore Police Department is very well trained as is the Johns Hopkins security team, which I know works very, very closely with the department as well. So, again, I know there's a rush for information, but I would caution to be a little bit patient. And again, in the hours ahead, I know that some accurate information will come forth from qualified sources. And again, the most important thing needs to be the safety and care of everyone that's involved in this incident. But you can believe that, again, in the days, weeks, and months ahead, there will be a lot of questions asked so that the incident can be reconstructed with hopes that it might be prevented in the future.
And
but again,
Rob,
I think...
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's also critical to remember that you could have the strongest and most stringent policies and protocols in place as it relates to patient and doctor safety. But again, remember that everyone is accountable for their own actions, and sometimes these kinds of situations may or may not be preventable, depending on again, the facts and circumstances which led up to this incident.
So do these officers, the SWAT team, do they have specific training in dealing with a hospital shooting like this? Is this a scenario they have potentially run through before? Because as we know, this has not happened at Hopkins before. So are they trained? How do they get the information they need to know where to go in the hospital, how to navigate? Is that something they would have gotten experience on in a round of training at some point?
Yes, it is. I mean, every situation is different, and there's going to be facts that surface which, may not be known before an incident itself, but I can tell you that the police department trains very vigorously, and they're extremely professional and very, very well qualified with regard to hostage barricade situations. And also the other important thing to remember is that the Baltimore Police Department works very, very closely with Hopkins security officials, and so between the two entities, you can believe that there is a well-thought-out plan ahead of time, and now it's a matter of executing that tactical plan with the other variables that will come into play with an incident such as this.
All right, Rob Weinhold with the Falston Group, an organization that helps agencies deal with a crisis just like this. Thanks so much for talking with us, the former Baltimore City Police Department spokesman. Want to go over again the information we do know at this point. This breaking news that happened just after 11 this morning on the campus of Johns Hopkins Hospital. We're being told a doctor has been shot at Johns Hopkins, and the gunman is on the loose inside the hospital. We're told he has been barricaded in one specific area. We want to make it clear right now, police are not giving us a lot of information, but they have not said that this is a hostage situation. So that term has not been used at this point. So far, we have not been given a lot of information either from the hospital. You see this picture here from our Roosevelt Leftwood. She took that. He's down at the scene here. The SWAT team has been there. We're told, according to the Baltimore Sun, that these teams were swarming into the building to deal with this situation, in which someone inside the building told us happened in the Nelson building on floor 8, although that has not been confirmed. According to a statement from John Lazaro, the spokesman for Johns Hopkins, they have put restricted access on the hospital, put the facility on lockdown, which means that staff, patients, doctors, nurses, basically everybody that's there, they are supposed to stay in the room and lock the door if at all possible. Obviously, Hopkins security officers are on the scene, Baltimore City Police are on the scene, and we are just waiting for additional word about what's happening. We are told the doctor in this situation is in critical condition, and we are waiting for additional information about whether or not that suspect has been caught. We're hearing conflicting reports on that information right now, but we will have more information as this story breaks, and we will bring it to you. Be sure to check abc2news.com and stay right here on ABC2 for breaking details on this shooting.